Hi, everybody. Back with another word from Father. This is going to be a lengthy one because there's quite a bit of information. So, my revelation started on Thursday, uh, January 27th. Um, Father had given instruction to one of the prophets that I listened to, Tea Time with Jesus by Ariel Sparks. And it took me by surprise because I was not expecting it. And she explains in her life in the very beginning that Father had instructed her to restrict the chat for individuals who have been on her, have been subscribed for less than 6 months. Now, I have been subscribed to Ariel Sparks since February of last year, 2022. And somewhere between February and July, I started having problems with receiving notifications when she went live. So I had to unsubscribe and resubscribe. So that made my subscription less than 6 months. And God is so good and so strategic, and His plans are, we can try to think like He does, but there's no way. Anyway, so in the live, Ariel explains why she restricted the individuals that have been on the live for less than 6 months. And there was a woman who, an older woman, who was causing some issues with her ability to deliver God's word. And it took me by such surprise that it hurt. It felt like God had pulled the rug out from under me. And I just felt so devastated. I felt blindsided. I felt, and all of it, I took it to God. And I spent the entire live, which the live was almost 5 hours. It was 4 hours and 55 minutes. I spent the entire live at Father's feet crying. And when I mean crying, it's like, when you were a child and you had this, your favorite toy, and it got taken away in a way that made you feel dejected, that made you feel hurt. And if you didn't have a favorite toy, maybe it was a favorite family member or just something that meant a lot to you. And now it just got taken away from you so suddenly, and you had this heart-wrenching just cry. That's what I had. And part of Ariel's comment about the reasons for the restrictions is that she also said that Father was upset that he didn't have a close relationship with some of the people that were brand new to the platform, and yet they were commenting and they were trying to receive blessings without having that close relationship. Sorry guys, I'm trying to keep the sun because it's right behind me. And so she was explaining all of this, and of course that I'm already feeling hurt. And so I bawled even more, and I cried and I cried, and even after the live, I still cried. I went to work crying. People could tell because normally I'm a very happy person, and I was trying so hard to be happy, and I wasn't letting them see that I would, but they could tell. They could see something wasn't quite right. And so then God started dropping things in my spirit, and I started listening, and I started, oh, okay. And He brought everything full circle. So here we go. So Father brought another word from Nina, a Bowl for Christ, who had started listening to actually before I listened to Ariel Sparks. But in the beginning, when I started listening to to Nina from Bowl for Christ, my emotions were so raw, and I was so in a vulnerable place, and I wasn't ready to receive words from her. And her first word that she gave, it wasn't for me. The correction that she was giving wasn't for me. But I was in such an unstable emotional place that her words hurt. And so I cried. And I went, and God's like, "Why are you crying? This word isn't for you." And I said, "I know, but it hurts. It just," and I was honest with him. And I told him, I am so in such a place right now with everything that's happened over the years, with everything that's gone through my path, everything that you've brought me out of, realizing who the people are that were doing these things to me. I said, my emotions are raw, and I'm not in a place where I'm healthy and able to handle these kinds of criticisms or to discern what is mine and what isn't. So God brought me Ariel. And she was a blessing because she was just gentle and sweet and kind. And everything she said resonated with me. And she had gone through some pretty tough things. So I let my guard down. I was like, okay. I can listen to her because she didn't like giving the harsh words. And I would have been like Nina had I been healthy, had I been raised in an environment that was somewhat better than where I came from. But, you know, I wasn't in a place to receive. I gave, and I would give until I had nothing left. And when I say nothing, I gave so much of myself to the people that God had me with that I was willing to give up my life to give them everything. And God didn't want that because they weren't worthy of my sacrifice. They weren't worthy of what I was doing. But they were stealing the blessings. They were stealing. I would have given them the blessings freely. But they were trying to take them by force. They were trying to replace me with themselves. They were doing all kinds of witchcraft. They were doing mirroring spells, and they were doing all kinds of things that were taking away from my spirit. And it started when I was a baby, and it kept going when I got married. I found out after my divorce from my ex-husband that the woman that raised me taught my ex-husband how to manipulate me, how to keep me subdued. And he took it a step further. He didn't want to lose the blessings. He didn't want to lose the ability of receiving everything that he was receiving. But he was very much in the world, and he did not want to give that up. So he had devised a plan to have me committed in an insane asylum. And that pill was pretty hard to swallow when the realization came. Because God gave it to me. He's like, you're not going for counseling. You're going because he wants to commit you. And I was like, no, I'm the mother of his children. We've been together for 23 years. We've grown up together. Like, how could he? And God said, don't trust him. And I said, okay. This was before my ex-husband had suggested counseling. And I felt like I was going crazy. At the time, I was drinking quite a bit. But the alcohol wasn't the problem. In the alcohol, he was putting something in it. Because I would wake up the next day and not know what happened. Like, I would black out. And I had been drinking since I was in my 30s. I didn't start drinking until I met him. And, and it was after I had had all my children, because I knew that alcohol was a spirit in my family that created issues. And so I didn't want to do that. But my father has always shown me that the husband is the leader, the husband is the head. So he told me that, don't, alcohol's not the problem, it's the person, and blah, blah, blah. So he talked me into drinking, and I did. And I had never blacked out before. And suddenly I was blacking out, like chunks of days gone. I could remember up to a certain point, and then I'm like, but I wasn't drunk until this time. And so God began to minister to me that he was putting something in my drinks. And that's why I was passing out. Because after the fact, after the divorce and after everything, I was still drinking the same amount of alcohol, but I wasn't passing out. I wasn't blacking out. And so he wanted, in order for us to continue married, he wanted me to go to a therapist. And because of he was the one that provided the insurance through his work. He didn't want me to have my own insurance. The only options that were available for therapists were 4 or 5 people that were in our area. So I knew that he was seeing a therapist. I knew her name. And I knew it was the same therapist because I would take him to his therapy sessions, and I would stay outside and he'd go inside, and he had a journal that he was writing in, and I never checked it. I never read it. It wasn't my place to. God never led me to try and, read it. And so I ended up going to the same therapist. And yes, I know it's conflict of interest. It's not, yeah. So I get to my first therapy session, and this woman starts asking me questions that she doesn't know me. She starts asking me, how much alcohol do you drink? And I was like, 1 or 2 glasses a night. Yes, I lied because God told me to. And then she goes, okay, so how often do you shower? And I said, every night. And that was also a lie because I wasn't showering. But God told me to. And she goes, okay, so let's focus on your issues with your mother. And I was like, excuse me? Like, yeah, so, because she would ask me questions, and they were always about my family, about my mom, my brothers, my sister. And yes, I call her the woman that raised me, not my mother, because she's not my mother. Not biologically, she's not. And so I wanted to talk about my relationship with my daughter, because that's the relationship I wanted to fix. That's the relationship I wanted guidance with, because I didn't have good role models about being a good mother. And I felt like I was failing her as a mom. And so I wanted help, guidance in that sense. And all she wanted to talk about was my mom, was the woman that raised me. And finally I said, look, I'm not here to talk about that woman. I'm not here to talk about the things that she did to me. I know that what she did was wrong. I know that I'm not going to get any closure. I know that she doesn't admit that she did anything wrong. And I'm over it. What I want to work on my relationship with my daughter, because that's what's important to me, not that woman. If I never see her again, I don't care. And she just kept going. And so I stopped. I said, I'm not coming. I didn't tell her anything. At the end of the year, when my 3 sessions were up with her, I did not re-up. My ex-husband was pushing me. You need to go back. You need to go back. You need to go back. I said, no. All she wants to talk about is the woman who raised me. All she wants to talk about is what she did. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm done. And that's when God started to give me a backbone, because he said no. And it's, if you've never been in an emotionally vulnerable place and you've never been a fighter, you'll understand. I'm a pacifist. I love peace. I don't like arguing. I don't like yelling. And I had this fire. Sorry, I just spit. I had this fire that suddenly started burning inside of me. And I started roaring like a lion. And he was like caught off guard, like he was not expecting it, because I was just, no, leave me alone. And I was being so aggressive and so not like me. In fact, to the point where I don't typically get upset when I go get things, when I go purchase services, because I I I give service. I'm a service kind of servant. God has put it in me to have a servant's heart, and that's exactly what I am. And when I see a person serving, it's not in me to treat that individual less, because I know what it's like to serve and I know what it's like to be treated that way. And when I was dealing with these individuals that I was getting services from, whether it was my car, tires, oil changes, and they were trying to take advantage of me, the lioness came out. And I was like, no, I'm not. And I wasn't rude. I wasn't belligerent. I didn't reduce them I was respectful, but I was firm. In fact, the very first time it happened, my ex-husband was like, this is a new side of you. I like it. I haven't seen you ever be like this. Like, you're usually the one telling me to be to be quiet, to keep it to myself, not to do this, not to do that. And I told him, I said, I'm done. I'm done people treating me like I'm nothing, like I'm no one. And what he didn't realize is that meant him too. That I was done him cheating on me all the time and lying about it and pretending that I was crazy and, using my words and my thoughts against me. There was this woman that he worked with that he had an inappropriate relationship with. And when I first started my last job, the job that I just left in October, we started carpooling together. And he would leave me the vehicle because he would get out after me, and then I would come pick him up, and then we'd go home. And that day was the first day, because I had started as a temporary employee, and that was the first day that I was starting as a full-time salaried employee for the company. I was no longer a temp. And I came to his work to pick him up. And this is how strong God's presence is, okay, in my life. And I picked him up. I had no idea, none, okay. He felt compelled. And when I say the word compel, I mean this man couldn't, 30 seconds after getting in the car, he's like, oh, I started to not feel good this morning. And I looked at him like, why didn't you call me? And he goes, well, I know it was your first day as a full-time employee, and I didn't want to, tell you that I didn't feel good. But what he said next, and he says, so my friend from work, and he said her name, and I'm going to be kind and not use her name right now, but judgment is coming to her as well. She took me to her house and let me stay there until just before you came to pick me up. And I said, excuse me? And I said, don't you ever go to someone else's house again, or this conversation is going to end in divorce. And I said, if you ever leave work to stay at some woman's house, pack your bags, because that's the last time. And he's like, no, 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 no. You know, she wasn't there. She went back to work. Now, mind you, she's married and she has a son. And the husband works in the same place as they do. And I used to work there too, but father took me out of the situation because he didn't want me anywhere near him. He's very controlling. He would get upset if I wanted to spend time with my coworkers. Sorry guys for blocking the camera. If I wanted to spend time with my coworkers and go out to eat with them for lunch, he would get upset if men talked to me. He would get upset if, now, remember what they say, that he who does the deed blames someone else for cheating? Yeah. He was constantly telling me that I was flirting with men and that I was giving them more than they deserve, more attention than that. And even to the point where I didn't realize that I did this, but apparently there's a certain type of wave that I would do with him. And when he saw me wave the same way to some other man, he brought it to my attention. Yeah, so that's how controlled I was under him. And so then fast forward, he's been friends with this woman for, at this point now years, because he's been working at this place for now 14, 15 years. And he's been friends with her this entire time. They're on the same team. They go to lunch together. They run together. Yes, I know. And she and him were making plans to go for a run. And I was a runner too, by the way. And he wouldn't go with me. I was running at night by myself and he wouldn't go with me. He said because I was too slow. And he felt like he wasn't getting a run, a real run. He could only hike with her because she kept up with him. She had the same stamina as him. And I'm like, and God just kept saying, give him grace. Pray for him. Okay. Okay. So he cheated on me for 23 years in our marriage. And I stood. And I stood. And I stood. And I stood. Because God knew that if we divorced, I wouldn't stand for him. Because of all the things that he'd done. I said, I will not divorce him until you tell me. So God knew that I was going to hold, if it killed me, I was going to hold on to that. And it got worse. It got so much worse. Because now we were having friendships, I knew her husband, I knew her son, they knew our kids, we were spending time together, we were going out to dinners together. Yeah. We helped each other move. Yeah. And one day, it all changed. Because their plan was to divorce their spouses and get married, go live together and get married. And they had this beautiful plan. But God, he destroys plans man makes. And God shared with me what happened. Even though I had no idea what was going on in the natural, in my spirit, I knew. So the husband told the wife, I have proof of your cheating. If you continue this path, we're going to get divorced. I'm going to get my son, and I'm going to get all the money. Because they have a prenup. She wasn't willing to give up her son because she loved him. It was her only child. And it was a blessing because she wasn't supposed to have children. And she was about to lose him because she was being a sinner with my husband at the time. And so my emotional status was not healthy. So God gave me a temporary prophet that I could hear, that I could grow from, that I could heal from. And when he started to see and show me that I'm getting better, he pulls the rug from under me. And now I know that Ariel was never meant to be my prophet, but she fed me and she was so good to me. And I will forever be grateful to her for her obedience. And God knows that when someone gets in my heart, it doesn't matter if he takes me away from them and I never see them again. They will be in my heart forever. Even the people that have hurt me, my family, my own children, my ex-husband, they're still in my heart. Not angry, not hateful, but I pray. And I know that God has already told me that their hearts are hardened, except for my children. My children were innocent bystanders of this whole situation. And they were sacrificed to spirits. Hang on, guys. I'm going to pause you for a second. Sorry, my puppy needed water, and I had to pause it so I could give him some. He's going to be loud because he's a loud drinker. I still have them in my heart. And God's already told me, your ex-husband, the woman who raised you, her children, they're going to be judged because their hearts have been hardened. And it wasn't just so that, it's not just because they've come against me, but what they started with me, they've now branched out and they're doing to others. They're stealing the blessings of other children because now they recognize how God works in the lives of his children. So that's why they're being judged and they're going to get punished. Not just for what they've done to me, but what they're doing to others. Because remember, it's not about us. It's about the saving the souls. And Father has received enough children's cries that have been affected by these people that he's now getting involved and he's taking care of the situation. And he's told me what their judgments are. Some of them will die. Some of them will be a physical death. And some of them will be a spiritual death. And they will be given the opportunity to repent. But some of them won't. And he's already showed me who won't. And so I'm now in a place where I understand. But I will carry Ariel with me for the rest of my life. And I will pray for her and I will ask God to bless her because she has been a blessing to me. And I'm going to give a warning to anyone who comes against her. Don't you dare. Because I will be there in the spirit and I will make sure that judgment comes. Because that is one of the things that I am assigned to do. Deliver justice and deliver judgment. I don't take the justice. That's God. God takes the justice. But I come in and I'm the last resort. So if you see me, learn my face. So if you see me coming, you better hit your knees and you better repent right in that moment because that's the judgment coming for you. And this is a word of warning. I don't know who you are, but God does. And he will bring me to your doorstep. If he has a judgment word that you are about to receive, and I'm your last hope, If you don't heed my word, when I leave your doorstep, you will receive his judgment. Because he sends me for the one, not the 99. He sends me for the one. So if I come knocking, you better start praying. You better repent. And I'm not saying this because I do this out of my own will. Are you kidding me? When he told me that this is my role, I'm like, why? And he goes, because you will give them opportunity after opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. That's why I went through hell. Because I wouldn't let God judge these people yet. I spent 40 years being attacked, being treated badly. And not because I did anything wrong, but because I wouldn't give up on them. I said, no, God, give them more time, give them more time, give them more time. And finally God said, I can't. I'm sorry. But I was not in an emotional, safe place where I would be able to handle that. Which is why Ariel is so special to me. So if you come against her, God will send me. And you will reap what you sow. So don't do it. Because I don't take pleasure in delivering judgment words. But that will be one word I would be willing to give. So don't. Because if it's a word for judgment that has come because of what you've done to me, I will be softer than when that judgment word is because of something you've done to one of my brothers, one of my sisters. And she is a sister that I love with all my heart, with all my spirit. And no, I do not put her above God. But he does tell us to love each other to the point that we will be willing to support each other. And to not die for each other, because we don't need to. We don't need to die for each other. We do need to die for God. Die to the flesh. Oh my goodness, I just realized why he had me come on. This is your judgment word. You listen to me. You watch